Request for bill introductions this morning. I guess I should ask Reed, are we good to go? All right. My blue light is on. That better? All right. I guess I'll just talk closer to the mic. Any bill introductions this morning? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the informational hearing. And so the first item that we have is the bonding for capital improvements on the University of Kansas campus. And so we have the privilege of having the Chancellor, Doug Girod, with the University of Kansas. Chancellor.
Good morning, Chairman and committee members. We appreciate the opportunity to be before you today. And I have with me a couple folks. One is Tucker Trotter, who you'll get to meet, who's CEO of Dimensional Innovations and co-chair of the advisory committee for the School of Architecture, as well as my CFO, Jeff DeWitt, if you have any financial questions. Oh, thank you. We do have the slides. And I'm not here to ask for money today. I'm just asking for authority so we can go out and get a project done. Yeah, I thought you'd appreciate that. So let's just get that out on the table. I wanted to give you a little background, though, on the School of Architecture, which is over 100 years old and was one of the very first in the country actually to become a discipline. It came out of engineering historically in this country and became its own. It was established in engineering in 1912, but it became its own discipline in 1920 and has become recognized nationally as one of the leaders, particularly in design build education. The programs through the School of Architecture and Design have 3 different accrediting bodies that we work with. And over the years, and have continued to actually inform the conversation that we're having today. Our school has continued to grow. We've had a decade of growth in the School of Architecture. We have over 1,000 students in that school at this point in time, and about half of those, actually slightly more than half those, come from outside the state of Kansas, which, as you'll hear, is a big opportunity for our companies who hire a lot of those students as they come out. It's also a very applied school. Over 75% of our students have an internship in some way, shape, or form, but they actually do extensive amount of work within the community, over 100,000 volunteer hours every year. And that's in a number of different areas, including work, for example, with the Center for Design Research, which does projects like built a mobile laboratory for our Heartland Health community that covers 70 counties in Kansas. They've recently done a project with Children's Mercy Hospital and T-Mobile to use artificial intelligence to create platforms to alleviate anxiety in pediatric patients undergoing care. And have done a lot of work also with, for example, the DOT agency is work with Wyandotte County and really around trying to address food deserts. Program they're particularly well known for, Studio 804, is a true design build enterprise. This just shows pictures that you cannot see, I'm sure, because they're tiny. I can't see them. Your eyes are better than mine if you can. But they've done over 70 projects in the last 30 years, which includes building dozens of houses. They design them, and then they actually build them. But it's also pavilions for parks, for both local and regional, for schools, for many other things. And the website at the bottom there, really you can go to and see all the many, many different projects that they're really worldwide famous for, and they win awards for their projects quite regularly. The reason this school is so important for our region, and you'll hear this even more clearly from Mr. Trotter when he talks about it from an industry perspective, but this is one of the fastest growing areas for our region with a 24% growth in architecture and design in the region over the last decade. And you may or may not know the Kansas City region is really the hub in the United States, particularly for sports architecture. 75% of the stadiums that have been built in the last decade were designed in Kansas City, and every Olympic stadium for the last 8 Olympic Games was designed in Kansas City. And so that continues to be a market that's growing rapidly, over 17,000 jobs in the region for this area. And the top 19 firms represent $14 billion in annual revenues for the region. You've heard a lot of these firms before, Populous, HNTB, Burns & Mack, Black & Veatch, J. Dunn, Dimensional Innovations, who you'll hear from today, the Zaner Company, and others that are in our region that regularly hire these students as they come out. Why we're really here today is to really talk about a project to update some of our facilities, both to expand to accommodate the growth of the school, and then also to update the facilities. And you might be able to see these pictures. On the left is our studio in 1915. And on the right, you can see we've upgraded it by putting fluorescent lights. It's the same facility we had in 1915. The problem is that the school has grown dramatically over that period of time, and we now have students, unfortunately, scattered across 9 different locations to achieve what they need to do within architecture and design. And of course, this building that this current studio in is over 100 years old and a historic facility, and can only have a moderate degree of upgrade with it. And really, the spread of the students across our 9 locations has really been problematic for us from an accreditation perspective, and that's come up actually repeatedly over the last over 10 years from our accreditors, and is something that they felt we really directly needed to address. So what we're asking for today is bonding authority from you to allow us to go out and sell $60 million in bonds. I'll show in just a minute how that would get used. Again, this is not a funding request, it's an authority request for us to go out and sell those bonds to help us get this project going. We've received over $14 million of philanthropy dollars to date, and we know that as soon as we have a green light on this project, which the bonding would allow, that will unlock further philanthropic efforts as well. And we also know time is money in construction, so we need to get this project going as soon as we can. And it's really a multi-phase project. There's really 3 phases to it. The first, we got a lot of site work we would have to do for this. The second would be to build a multidisciplinary building adjacent to the current facilities. And then the third would be, once the new building is open, to move out of the old building and then remodel the historic building for the third phase of it. And this bonding will help us accomplish these 3 phases of this project. And that's really where we are with this request today. And if you, Mr. Chairman, if you'd allow, I'd like to introduce Mr. Tucker Trotter, who's CEO of Dimensional Innovations. As I mentioned, he's co-chair of our School of Architecture Advisory Board and has really been on this project since the very beginning. You might even say the driving force of this project, at least in recent years. So, Tucker, if you wouldn't mind saying a few words, we'd appreciate it.
I was going to do that myself, but welcome to committee, Mr. Trotter.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Thanks for giving me a few minutes. So, as was said, my name is Tucker Trotter. I'm a resident of Leawood, Kansas. I'm a proud Kansan and graduate of the University of Kansas. I'm also the founder and CEO of Dimensional Innovations. So, DI is an employee-owned, Overland Park, Kansas-based company with 340 employee owners. We create remarkable experiences around the world and locally. So our work includes, we've worked on the last 7 new NFL stadiums. We do a lot of work for the NBA, MLB. We've done Legolands all around the world, Disney work. We're currently working on the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library. And our local projects include the Kansas Museum of History right here, the Amelia Earhart Museum, Atlas 9, a new project that opened near the Legends, KU's Gateway Project, and various projects at K-State and Wichita State. And other museums all over the state. So over the past 30 years, I'm really proud of the work that we've done at DI to transform the company into a globally recognized, respected, and unrivaled industry powerhouse. I also, as Chancellor said, I also serve as the chair of the Professional Advisory Board for the KU School of Architecture. The advisory board is comprised of 45 incredible industry leaders from a lot of the firms that the Chancellor mentioned, and they provide guidance to the school on industry needs and concerns, as well as mentorship for the students. One of the keys to DI's success has been its access to talented students and faculty at the KU School of Architecture and Design. This access has been instrumental in shaping our state and region into a global design hub. And as you know, and the Chancellor just mentioned, I'm really proud of the fact, and you should be too, that Kansas City is known as the sports architecture capital of the world. So through a steady pipeline of creative and technically skilled graduates, KU has supplied leading architecture, planning, and design firms like DI with innovative talent, with an innovative talent pipeline. And they graduate and they stay here. And they work for firms that you would know like Garmin, BRR, DLR, Black & Veatch, and all the ones that the Chancellor mentioned. Through these connections, our firm also sponsors a studio, and that provides an opportunity for us to work directly with the students and train them. And these studio collaborations, in addition to internships and industry partnerships, have really strengthened the ties between the university and the region's design community. And it really leads to fostering entrepreneurship and attracting national and international projects. So this sustained connection between KU continues to, fuel a dynamic ecosystem that positions the region as a center for excellence in architecture and design. I'm here today in my capacity as the chair of the Professional Advisory Board as an industry professional to provide my strong support for the new KU multidisciplinary architecture and design building and facility renovations. I ask that you provide authority for bonds to be issued so that this project can be completed. And the new building and renovations will help us, this is really important, retain accreditation. So accreditation is in danger from this globally recognized program. And this has been an item of concern for years now. And I've personally witnessed the challenges that the Chancellor mentioned with the current space and that the faculty and students use, and I can confirm that there's a critical need for space just with the growth of the school. So interdisciplinary and collaborative workspaces are critical to prepare students for the realities of professional practice. It's how we work, and I'm confident that the creation of this new space will help keep KU competitive with its peers and able to continue to attract the best and brightest students from around the country. So I appreciate your time and consideration of this important issue, and I thank you for your service to the great state of Kansas. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Trotter. So we're going to go ahead and open up for questions. The first question I have for you, Chancellor, is you had mentioned in your testimony that accrediting bodies have been citing KU for poor facilities since the 1990s. So why has it taken 35 years to address the needs?
Well, I wasn't there 35 years ago.
Oh,
but
I know.
Actually, only 30 years ago.
I wasn't there either.
I'll
I
take
mean,
30 years of it. No, the reality is we've done a lot of work in that period of time, but that is how we've ended up in 9 locations, is we've had to find other spaces that were usable on campus, and we have spread out across the campus. There's only so much we could actually do in Marvin Hall itself, which is a historic building. But really, that has been short-term solutions for the challenges we've had with accrediting bodies. And their criticism is, of course, on behalf of the students, which is this is not the best experience for the students if you're traveling all over 6 or 9 different locations on campus to complete your degree. And so while we've been able to find other space and other studio space for them to work in, it's been far from ideal. And our last go-around, they were pretty clear that actually the dispersion wasn't the solution either, that we really needed to figure out a solution to bring everybody back together.
So this is a renovation of Marvin Hall and then a construction of a new building?
Construction of a new building first that allows us to, and then pull people out of Marvin, renovate Marvin, we'll move back into Marvin, and then we'll have both. And so we'll have the expansion once both those are done. In the meantime, we need to phase that project.
All right. Committee, any questions for the Chancellor? Representative Halverson.
I joke, but I was there 35 years ago, so. Yeah, you know. And in that period of time, we've changed a lot, both good and bad. We're at a period now and in the future that we're going to be short SGF dollars. I understand what you're proposing. Is there a policy that sets forth for KU and for the regions that says when and how you should use bonding and how it should be paid for that we can use as a guide for our future and discussions?
Chancellor.
Yeah, so absolutely, there is a policy at the Board of Regents, and it comes to a debt revenue ratios that are industry-wide used to sort of what maintains a healthy balance sheet, if you will. And I could really get into the weeds with my CFO if you'd like, but we do have a limit of what is healthy to carry as debt, and as we pay off debt, then we can take on new debt and be able to carry that financially. We've done that analysis on this. We're well below what we're capable of, or theoretically, but we're not comfortable with. So we have built this into our 5-year financial plan. We've presented that to the regents. They've approved this project for us to go out, and we think we've proven our ability to pay for it, which is out of the general operating budget. So some of that's SGF, but actually a lot of it's tuition dollars, and then some of it's also off of research dollars. So we use all those sources when we address these issues.
So going on Representative Helgerson's question, and you had mentioned before, you're not asking for money, you're just asking for the bonding authority.
Right.
So the bond payment, if we would give the authority for this construction, would be absorbed in your current budget.
Correct.
All right. Representative Helgerson.
And in the future. Too often,
You mean for future projects as well?
for future, well,
Absolutely.
for paying off this,
Yes.
and you have enough capacity to pay off the bonding for this project with existing resources.
We do. We do. And we also anticipate continuing to raise additional philanthropic funds to offset even more of it. But we can handle this number as it is today, and this will let us get the project done.
When I made a call this summer about some other projects to the KU endowment, I was told briefly by somebody at endowment, they said, well, we can handle anything and everything because we take in so many dollars. And I was kind of taken
Well,
back.
I'd love to know who that person is, if you have that phone
You know,
number.
I don't think people recognize that used to be, we'd have the regents come and say, it's KU's project for this, it's Wichita State's next year, this is how the state building fund is going to take care of it, and we'd slide all of this around. I don't see that now or in the future. And
Correct.
Your whole financial scheme of renovating that campus has to be off of the endowment, private donors, and bonding.
Correct. We agree.
Could I have a copy then of that policy,
I'm
Chancellor?
sure, yeah.
you know,
I'm sure we
sometime
get
in the
that.
future?
You
And,
bet.
well, as I remember, the KU healthcare science building we did not use any bonding for that. Is that correct?
Chancellor.
We did use some bonding authority for that, and those bonds are almost paid out. Which, I'm sorry, you talking about the one in Kansas City or the one in Wichita?
Representative
One in
Helgerson.
Wichita.
Yeah, no bonding on the one in Wichita.
And it was
That's
paid
correct.
off completely with fundraising,
Actually, we had ARPA dollars for that project.
partially.
Partially, mostly though, mostly. It's probably 80% ARPA dollars and 20% money we've raised.
If you refer back to the document that we had yesterday, you'll see the amount of money that was pushed aside by ARPA for that project.
I'll refer back, and you and I can talk after the meeting.
Sure,
Thank
certainly.
you.
You bet. I'll be available.
Vice Chair Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so it seems like your enrollment has gone up, maybe, I don't know, 20% or so in the last 5 years. What would you say your enrollment for architecture
For
students?
architecture, it's at least 20% over that period of time. Could be 25%, but it's in that range, yes.
Okay, and so your Marvin Hall renovations, I'm just trying to understand, because whenever an engineer or an architect designs anything, it's always the best and the biggest and the most optimum. And so 59 million is a lot for a new building when you already, are you doubling your square footage? What's going on in terms of actual square footage?
When it's
Chancellor.
all said and done, it's about a third additional square foot. I mean, we've downsized the project, to your point. We have downsized the project. But it's about a 30% increase in our square footage, which will allow us to bring from 9 locations back to our 1 location.
Vice Chair Williams.
30%, you're expanding your footprint by 30%, and that's $60 million? in bonding? Or I mean,
The
60
whole
million for
project's
the
about-
construction?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
So,
There's the renovation and there's a construction of a new building.
no, it's.
The building, the
separate.
new building itself is close to 60 million. That's
Yeah,
correct.
There's a new building being constructed. Vice Chair Williams?
Well, yes, Mr. Chair. I guess, I mean, we're just the budget committee, but I would personally want to see a comparison of even the square footage costs compared to other bonding projects. And I know, I mean, it doesn't have, I wouldn't think it wouldn't have the high-tech equipment that you would have at, for example, the complex down in Wichita State for the medical building. But it just seems a lot for only 30%. And you're still, and I love the fact that you're renovating Marvin Hall. I think that's great. It just seems like a lot.
Chancellor?
Would you like us to get you the dollar per square foot for this project? We certainly can do that.
Vice Chair Williams?
And some comparisons.
I think for this committee, the slides are wonderful and they give us an overall view of it, but I think sometimes it would be really helpful to forward documents that kind of show the progress of this, the rationale for $60 million for only 30% more space. I understand that your pictures are really helpful of how it looks different than it did, even 50 years ago. So I think that's very helpful, but yes, the total square footage in Marvin with the other location, what are those features that are causing it to be $60 million?
Chancellor?
So,
It's actually a four-story, quite large building. The 30% increase is on 3 other buildings plus 5 other locations. So it's 30% is actually a quite large increase in square footage.
Vice Chair Williams?
thank you, Mr. Chair. Any additional information? I think that's a good point, that you're in 9 locations. It's not just Marvin Hall. But, yeah, thank you.
Happy to get you that.
Representative Curtis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I definitely have heard from professors and students that work in the Kansas City area and some of those projects in my district of, the need and the constraints that they have there at the school. And I know that there has been a long desire for improved facilities. I want to talk a little bit about the work that you do on the ground. I love the community work that you do. In the area in eastern Wyandotte County, some of the projects that you have done to expose students not only to architecture, but when they're doing those projects, the students are actually there working alongside, and that is exposure that those students would probably not have if it were not for your work in our community. So I just want to let you know how much I appreciate that, and how much I have seen those students be very invested in the community, and many of them come back. Some of those projects have been just a few blocks from my house, and so they come back and they visit and they bring their parents, and they're very proud of the work that they do. So there's very much a very good partnership there, and I would like to see that continue and perhaps even do more. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chancellor?
Thank you. I appreciate that, and actually that is one of the reasons our school is so internationally known is because of the hands-on nature that our students have. They not only design things, they actually build them. And to my knowledge, we've not lost a finger yet, which I'm very grateful for, because these are architecture students, but but they do remarkable work in craftsmanship as well, and very passionate about the mission of serving the community.
Representative Amix?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chancellor, you and I have had opportunity to work together on projects through my time when I was at City Hall, and I appreciate all the work that we were able to do, and it's been pretty good partnership, I would think.
Appreciate the partnership.
And echo some of the comments that my colleague from Wyandotte County. University really makes our community a heck of a lot better. I got to say that. I am very happy to be able to support, Marvin Hall project and the projects that you have going on. Mr. Trotter, excellent architecture firm and all the work that they do, and you can see that in the projects that come forward. But I do have to bring something up, and just to kind of clear the air, there was an article that I think was brought up by a Kansas City writer in the last couple of days that I've been told about, that talks about the use of possible use, and I say possible, use of tax dollars in paying for NIL contracts. Can you shed any light on that as we look at this?
I would prefer to stick to the bonding aspect of this and not the name, image, and likeness.
Okay.
That's the subject matter of today.
Could I just make one comment, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Which
Chancellor.
is that article is blatantly false. So I will say that, and I'll catch up with you afterwards. But there are no tax dollars, there are no SGF, there's no tuition dollars going to pay student athletes.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Representative Amix?
Yeah, and I'm happy to stick to the bonding. I just want to make sure that we cleared the air of this kind of once and for all. And I
Appreciate the opportunity.
comment. Thank you.
Representative Getz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chancellor, for being here. The cost of the project, I think, maybe rightfully raises some concerns, but I wonder how much more recruitment do you think you will see out of a new facility? I mean, in the medical space, you know, your facility really matters on being able to recruit those students to come and go through that program. Athletics, the same way. And this being an architecture and design facility, that there be, I guess my question is, are there some kind of intricacies in the architecture and design built into this that are kind of part of that recruiting tool, but also part of the education portion of this, what this facility is going to accomplish?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, really appreciate that question. And actually, it is a huge recruiting challenge for us today, an opportunity for us in the future. And at least 10 of the regional, meaning the whole Midwest, schools of architecture have built new facilities in the last 10 years. So we are competing in that sense, and it is a challenge for us. I'm happy to say we've still been able to have that growth despite that, but it really will become an increasing challenge for us in the future. And of course, these are architecture and design students. They care about physical space. They care about how you interact with the space, and this will be a big advantage for us in the future, for sure. I appreciate that.
Representative Hoffman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chancellor, for being here. On the, so 13.8 million, it looks like that's about 23% of what the bonding would be for the donor gifts. Have you got the 13.8 million already, or is that just anticipated what you'll get?
Chancellor?
That's what we have committed today. We actually anticipate getting much more than that. But really, one of the reasons we are pushing for this year is because we did just recently get a big component that got us to that number, which gets us over the threshold that we feel like we could handle this project. To be honest, if we didn't have that and we know a pathway to even more than that, we would be less comfortable about our ability to fund it, but we feel very comfortable with it where we are today.
So you'll continue to raise
Absolutely.
money to help pay the bond?
And Mr. Trotter's going to help me.
Okay. So how much deferred maintenance is this going to help with?
That's actually an
what is
excellent
it? Well,
question.
I can't remember what
Jeff,
the
do
name
we
of the
know that
hole is.
number on Marvin Hall alone?
Marvin?
It's hundreds of, maybe even up to $1 million. It's big.
Oh, it's got to be at least at Marvin Hall. Yeah, no, it'll be in the millions because we also will get out some old spaces. But Marvin Hall has significant deferred maintenance, unfortunately,
that'd
given
be
the age of the
interesting to-
building. So once it's all done and that's rehab, that's a significant improvement that we'll have and be able to take that off our list.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great if maybe you could
Sure.
get that for us. I mean, I think that's a great component that we often miss when we, do these.
Right.
And then my last question is, maybe to just really get my support, we could have Kansas State Architecture and design it for you?
I would like it to be functional, sir.
I'll rest.
That was a nice retort. Representative Steele?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chancellor and team, for being here. I kind of want to go back to the accrediting thing because I feel like universities come in here and they mention the word accrediting like you're going to immediately lose accreditation and this is terrible and horrible. And I think that's a false assumption for what accreditation truly does. So is it a fair statement to say you're not at risk of losing accreditation because of a building?
Chancellor.
Thank you for the question. You're not wrong. As we mentioned, this has been a challenge for us since the 90s, and we've been slowly addressing it, slowly improving, and that's typically what the accreditation process is designed to do, is help improve, right? And so they have been pretty clear that scattering across 9 locations is not considered an improvement. Of course, each accreditation cycle comes up with different concerns as well, so you have to respond to the most recent one, and the most recent one actually did raise this as their number 1 issue. Did not put us on probation. We didn't get a citation for it. It was an area of great concern.
Representative Steele.
I think that just needs to be very clearly noted. You're not on probation. You still have full accreditation. No issues or concerns. This was just noted.
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you,
Repeatedly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Ballard.
Very fair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, thank you, Vice Chancellor, for being here. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would address that. Even though you're not on probation, you do know from students and evaluations that they do annually that it is noted all the time. It's lack of space. You have to go to so many different places. But at one point, your warning really gets to the point like you got to do something along those lines. But I just addressed that. But I'd want to say, what you see here is the old spaces are difficult and expensive to upgrade. I can tell you that because I have an older house and I wanted just a portion downstairs in the basement. I haven't done it yet because it costs more than we are willing to pay. Eventually we'll get it. But the other thing I'd like to say about recruitment, and I wish I could remember exactly, Studio
804.
804. That is one of the biggest recruitment areas for the School of Architecture because students get to build a house every year from scratch, and they do all of the work with the supervision. Could you expand a little bit more on that? Because that's one of the unique features that the architecture school has in the nation.
Chancellor.
Yes, and actually, thank you for that. Actually, and internationally, we're recognized for that. That's not a common element to schools of architecture, and Mr. Trotter can speak to it probably better than I, but it is a design build. I mean, you design it, but then you have to actually build it. And I think most of us would agree that you learn a whole lot through the doing than you do for the planning. And it's not just houses, but it's also pavilions for parks. It's at museums. They do multiple projects actually every year. Multiple classes do. But it is an incredible experience, and that's our number 1 attractant, I think, is for the school.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off, the phrase deferred maintenance was used. I have to go ahead and say, as I've said a million times in this committee, deferred maintenance is expensive as all hell. And I absolutely detest kicking the can down the road and multiplying the repair price. But that's on another topic. One of the things that you mentioned about Marvin Hall was it was a historic building. How much is that impacting the price tag that we're seeing here for the renovation?
Chancellor.
Thank you for that. And it is an expensive building. Historic buildings are expensive to redo, and you can only do so much to them, meaning you can't always bring them up to modern standards of what you need for education. So the new building does an element to that. Again, and against the cost for Marvin Hall, which is about $14 million. We can get about half of that back on historic tax credits. That's the upside of being a historic building, is there are historic tax credits that can help you do those renovations. But it is a building that needs a lot of deferred maintenance, to your point, in addition to not being enough space or the right space.
Representative Sutton.
Well, I'm just going to say if it costs 3 times as much to remodel and you get half back, that's
a fair statement.
Still ugly.
It's rough.
Right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Mosier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here, Chancellor. you have a picture here of where the 9 locations are. How far are those 2 distant ones away from the main campus, just to give me an idea of?
About a mile, to the 2 most distant ones, that's
Yes.
about 10 miles and 6 miles, I think, are the 2 distances.
Okay,
Representative
thank you.
Mosier?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further questions for the Chancellor? Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't necessarily have a question, but I think in light of some of the discussion, if we could have staff look at, say, the last 5 years, 10 years of bonded projects with that we've given authority to, from, you know, the diagnostic lab we did last year at K-State, others, what the cost per square foot is. I think that would, I
You're
think that,
specifically talking about university bonding or total
I would say
bonding?
state,
bonding,
any state bonding. So we're comparing apples to apples. I'm not disagreeing with the representative. I think that would be a good, if we're going to look at one, let's get the broad picture, if that would be all right, Mr. Chairman.
That'd be fine, yes. Vice Chair Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I actually have a question for you, or actually Avery, about the SIB, the State Institution Building Committee. Are they the ones that actually dig deep into this and review all of our bonding? Where is that?
Well, actually, no, we actually have the authority on the bonding, and if you want to have a question, I mean, I think it was the Kansas Reflector that said Representative Anderson wants to dissolve that committee. So I'll let Representative Anderson answer the other portion of that question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I should probably be careful with further comments, but I will say that that committee does not do a lot of digging deep. So we should do a better job at that.
Any Chancellor?
I would just make one comment to that. The processes are different if the state is carrying the bonds, meaning expected to pay the bonds, versus when somebody else is expected to pay the bonds. And so that's a bifurcated process. I do believe I hope there's more due diligence if the state is actually paying for the bonds. I know we do a whole lot of that on our side when we have to pay for the bonds, and we run that up through the Board of Regents policy, which we talked about earlier.
Vice Chair Williams.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I would just say one of the things we might consider for a select meeting or a joint meeting would be on bonding. We had in our budget bill last year a pretty significant bond for KBI. And I think that our committee, we're making big decisions without all of the information. We get great slides, and I do appreciate it. It looks like a great project, but that's all we know. And we don't really, I don't feel able to make those types of judgments with the amount of information I have right now. And so that would be very helpful, and so something to consider requesting.
Well, and you know, we had the agenda planning meeting on Tuesday, and I think after the discussion today, probably on next Tuesday's meeting, because we're not going to have a meeting on tomorrow or Monday, maybe we have a briefing by research in regards to bonding. Great. So, Susan, we're making a change to the agenda for next week. Any further questions for the Chancellor? All right, seeing none, thank you again, Chancellor Girard, for being here and giving us an update in regards to the capital improvements on the University of Kansas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee, for your time today. We appreciate it.
Okay, committee, we're going to go ahead and move on to a new title, and I think Andrew is going to be discussing that because actually I toured McConnell Air Force Base in regards to what the next topic is, and I had personally asked Wichita State University to not call it maintenance, repair, and overhaul, and rename it something else. And I think Zach and Andrew came up with the Military Sustainment Program. So that is going to be the next item on the agenda, and so I invite Andrew Schlapp, the Vice President with the Government Relations and Strategy with Wichita State University, to talk about the new title of Military Sustainment Program. Andy.
Thank you, Chair Waymasters, members of the committee. Thanks for having us here today. Love to talk about what's going on at Wichita State. Oh, good. You have. I was not going to really run through this presentation, but I will click slides every once in a while if I remember to do that. But anyway, wanted to talk about the exciting things that are happening at Wichita State. And first of all, I wanted to say John Tomlin wanted to be here today. He is actually in Florida, meeting with DOD, Department of War, Department of Defense, on future programs at Wichita State that have an opportunity to be in Kansas and could not be here today. So I'm here in his place and wanted to first of all say thank you for the investment you made in what we're calling now the Military Sustainment Program. 6 years ago, you gave us $7 million a year for 5 years. We were able to build 2 hangars with those hangars. When we came here, we talked about using it for commercial MRO work, and the company we brought in we were excited about, but they had some financial constraints, and they really slowed down what they were doing. And so we were sitting with the infrastructure that you guys invested in, and we didn't want it to sit empty. So we started looking for other work, and we brought in MD-80, so we're doing the oil spray when there's an oil mishap out in the oceans. We did the work to develop those aircraft to disperse that oil. We're also working on with 737s, fire, I'm finding no words today. If you have a fire and you want it out, the planes that fly over and throw the powder out, we're doing that work as well. And then what we discovered, as we said, we need to figure out what this work is. And you guys helped invest in some money for digital transformation a few years ago, and we started digitizing all the platforms for the Air Force and actually for the Army as well. What we've discovered is we have wonderful engineers, and most of the platforms that we fly are over-engineered and are lasting a lot longer than we ever imagined they would last. KC-135 is going to fly close to 100 years. Don't know if you know this or not, but our most reliable bomber we have in the fleet today is the B-52, and that's going to continue to be one of the biggest bombers we use. Think about, I think the last one was made in 1967. So it's flying for a long time. The B-1 is 40 years old, and that's our newest bomber, besides the B-2, and I think the B-2 is actually getting up there in age as well. New bombers being developed. All that to be said, all that engineering work was done in a 2D world, and we're in a 3D world. And so a lot of what the investment in the research you did a long time ago was allowing us to invest in the future of how you design aircraft, and that's digitizing that aircraft. And we have 240 embedded suppliers in Kansas right now that are then using that technology and able to buy the equipment they're going to need to help sustain these platforms going forward. So then we get the $35 million for these 2 hangars. As we were developing in the commercial space, we realized a lot of these commercial endeavors are not, they don't have enough money to get to the finish line, and it's just going to take a long, long time. We went to the military because we were doing all the sustainment work for them, and they started saying, hey, can you help sustain some of our aircraft? So I just want you to see on this first slide here what our growth has been in expenditures since we started making these investments, and these are outside dollars coming in because of the investments that the state makes. Right now, Wichita State is #1 in aerospace R&D. Again, going back many years, you guys said focus on what you're good at. That's what we're good at, and we're making sure we do that. If we go to the next slide, here in 2018 is when we started talking about sustainment of current aircraft, and you can see what happened. The amount of work that we've gotten because of that. And I think that's important to recognize, and the future of this is going to grow even larger, and we'll get to some of those programs here in a second. On this slide here, God, I can't keep it there. It's going to take just 10 minutes just to get to this. Anyway. Yeah, I'm not very good at technology. This is why we have engineers doing it, and I'm talking at the microphone. I'll start here and just say there's 3 areas: commercial, and we discovered in commercial there's just a long lag time. There's military, and what we're finding out is because of the length of these platforms and how long they're going to fly, and the work that needs to be done, we're talking about generations of work that have an opportunity to come to Kansas. So if you see the blue here, we started in commercial. That's kind of falling off, and then you can see the military piece. And then the third piece is what we call prototypes and modifications. You start talking about the way the wars are changing, and we're talking about unmanned aerial systems, cheaper bombs, cheaper, that's really these modifications and prototypes that we're talking about. And so that's where we really see the growth. That's where we see the future of what we're doing going to be. And that's really where we changed the focus. So I want to talk about two programs. We have more than two, but these are the two programs that I think are important to understand. So we started digitizing the B1, right? It was made in the 80s, 2D drawings. You can't get parts made. So we digitized it. Then they started having a problem. There was I think it's the Stark Treaty that was in Iceland that we couldn't, the B1 could no longer use nuclear weapons, so we had to put a bulkhead in there. And that bulkhead actually weakened the aircraft and caused the spine of the aircraft to break. So they were going to have to retire the B1. They took it to Boeing, and Boeing said, we can fix it. The military took an active, we have 44 B1s. They took one of them, started fixing it. $89 million later said, we can't fix it. So they're getting ready to retire the B1. They came to us and said, since you've done all this digital transformation and reverse engineering, can you do this work? And we said yes. So in one of the hangars, we had to put in a special interior because you have to keep the temperature within 3 degrees at all times. And our students and our researchers were able to actually fix the problem. We were able to do that on a static aircraft that doesn't fly. We got the first aircraft in September of this year to land, and we're actually starting that repair work today. Here's the exciting part. I'm so good at this. There's 4 programs that need to be done for the B-1 bomber. And so here you can see the total cost to do that is about $2.5 billion. Most of that is going to go to the researchers and the equipment that's going to go into doing that research to fix it. But here's what's really important. All the parts that are made, we've committed to all those parts being made in Kansas. We have 240 suppliers that are here. And over the life of this project alone, $1.2, $1.3 billion will go to the embedded supplier base to then help build the B1. And here's what's really, really exciting about this. Now our suppliers will start purchasing the new equipment that's going to be required in this digital world of how we build parts, whether it's additive manufacturing, subtractive manufacturing. That investment alone keeps those companies here. And then the benefit for the military is that I think they have a couple thousand bids that go unanswered every year because they don't have suppliers that can read the 2D drawings that they have. So we're helping them get the 3D drawings. We use our supplier base. And so for those 4 programs, just on the B-1 bomber alone, that's about 10 years of work. It's going to keep our embedded supplier base in business. And this is important because what was happening is all the research was moving to the coasts. Then the engineers moved to the coasts. And guess where they build the new products? Where the engineers and the research is. We've really focused between what you guys have done and what the feds have done in building the infrastructure. And the infrastructure is what's important. It's not investing in a company, it's that infrastructure that we've been able to then go out and find multiple companies to come in here and with a DOD. Let's see if I can handle this. Here's a private sector example. S&C, company out of Chicago, and actually this division is out of Denver. They won the SIOC award. So the SIOC is the flying Pentagon. So whenever we're in crisis so 9/11 is a great example. This plane goes up in the air and it becomes the nerve center for the DOD. And in that plane is the Secretary of Defense and the the President of the United States. And so on 9/11, that's where President Bush was. And they're making all decisions on what's going to happen in this aircraft. There's 4 of them. One is always in the air. And when that one lands, another one goes up. And whenever Air Force One is in the air, it's right behind Air Force One. We are doing all the digital work for this as well in a hangar. to then take a 747 and modernize that flying Pentagon for what's necessary today. So again, this is, I believe it's the largest private sector contract with a university in the history. I think the going back to the largest one before is with MIT and IBM and Watson, sitting in a hangar today, and we're doing all the work again to digitize this aircraft. Think about when this 747 was made. You got to digitize it. Our students and our researchers have to take every part apart, scan it, and put it back into a digital framework. So those are two of the major projects that you can see right now if you get the tour. Some of you guys have been on that tour. And what I would do, and I would do this at the end, invite anybody who wants to, and we'll find some time out of session for anybody who wants to come down and see it. I think it's really, really important. We have to work on dates. The B-1 bomber is kind of a classified piece, so you have to have a special access to get in. But I mean, again, for anybody here who wants to see what we're talking about, would love to have you out there to see it. It's pretty exciting work that's going on. The last thing, here are the projects we currently have. We're currently working on the B-1 bomber. We talked about that being about a $2.7 billion project. We talked about the B-2. The B-2 is going to come, and we're going to start working on that. And that's just in the infancy. We don't know where that's going to go, but we will start working on that. We just got news that they want us to do the MRO work for the F-22. And we have projects we can't talk about in public. But again, if you go on a tour, maybe we could talk about what that is. So it's real exciting what opportunities that we have. Here's what we know from the Department of Defense. They're looking to Kansas and saying, you could be the military sustainment for our bomber fleet. But we need an investment, right? We need an investment. We need to know that Kansas wants it. So what you guys did is you put money in. It's not new money. It's money that's been there. You've continued to put that $7 million in so that we let them know that we want this work. Because here's what happens, and this is what the Pentagon has told us. If we have to go through MILCON, then we have to build it in Oklahoma because that's where our MRO work happens. But we like what you guys are doing, and we like the fact that the infrastructure is here, because then I can move programs. I'm not fighting the military saying this is where this work has to happen. So that's really what what we came back for, and when we asked for that continuation of that $7 million, was to be able to build a new hangar for a new program that would really, it's not the B-1, it's not the B-2, it's not the B-52, that will be in service soon. And they know that it has issues now that need to be fixed, but if they do that, then let's just find a place to do that. And we have an opportunity to get that as well. And so, again, I guess in conclusion, from a military sustainment program, when we came to you and we said, hey, we're going to do commercial, that didn't work. We went to other places, did a 6 or 7 other aircraft, got into the military. There's a super great upside on this. And what's really exciting to me is it's not just Wichita State, it's all the suppliers and all the companies that supply parts will be part of what this is going forward. And if you think about just the B-2, 40 years old, how much longer is it going to fly? If you get the new bomber, you're talking about generations and generations of wealth and work for our Kansas economy. So I'll stop there, be glad to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Andy. And I just wanted to say, I know it took a while for us to organize a tour where I could actually tour the hangars and see that. And Zach and John and I were on the tour, and I have to commend you because you had to babysit my kids while they were running all around the hangars. And so I want to thank you for that. But I have to say, I mean, it was pretty awesome to see that. And when we walked into the first hangar and we saw the Doomsday jet, and I actually thought at first it was Air Force One. And then we actually went into the fuselage and was looking at all the retrofitting that was going on into that program and what that plane will actually be utilized for. The next is in regards to the B-1 bomber, and when you had mentioned this in your comments, that they took it back to Boeing to try to fix the spine of the B-1 bomber, and they couldn't fix it. And then Wichita State University then took the challenge They were able to fix it. And what was most awe-inspiring about the whole thing was that all the suppliers that fixed that B-1 bomber were in Kansas. And I just wanted to reiterate that. All the suppliers were in the state of Kansas. You know, small suppliers, but they were able to fix the B-1 bomber. One thing that I will say, and I expressed this to both Andy and Zach when we were leaving McConnell, is that if you haven't had a chance, you really need to take a tour of it. And I actually had expressed that I think the entire Appropriations Committee and Senate Ways and Means should have a tour of these hangars and seeing exactly what this military sustainment program is looking like now and what would look like in the future, because it is actually a awesome program that we have at Wichita State University.
Thank you.
Representative Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is fascinating. I wondered how much the security issues obviously have to be, and if you are feeling up to date with all the cybersecurity that you need to be in charge of.
Andy?
So, yes, we do. We're totally aware. This was not part of our testimony, but we run 2 supercomputers for the Air Force. So anything that the Air Force is doing, top secret or whatever, all that information and all those projects and programs are run through Kansas. So yes, we are fully aware. It's a hard project, right? You're never fully safe, but we do it at a level that the Air Force trusts us with classified information.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Estes.
On my tour, I asked you if you knew the total number of employees that all the suppliers have, and I wonder if you've had time to get that number.
Andy?
Yeah, it would have been good for me to have that, right? So I will get that to you. Sorry about that.
Thank you, because I think that number is significant. And
I agree. It is.
Thank you.
Representative Helgerson.
Andy, thank you very much. Yeah, I'll admit this. I've probably been your biggest critic. Is that fair?
Yeah, I agree. There's 2 others. You'll be up there.
But I'm also very supportive of what you've done and Wichita State has done in the area, and for all those 200-plus businesses. Can you tell me a little bit more about the strategic plan? And the legislature has decided to put $7 million toward it this year. Do you expect more to come in the upcoming years?
I think the project we're talking about, and again, we need to get into the details with the Department of Defense, Department of War, about what the total cost would be. I'm assuming it's going to be around 50 million.
I'm sorry?
50 million.
50?
50, 50. Okay. I think the 35 million went to build the 2 hangars that we talked about today. So we have, in this budget, you're putting another 7 million in. That will be the completion of those 2, the funding for those 2 programs or hangars. And now we're talking about what an additional hangar would be. And so if you kept 7 million in there and the project ended up being $49 million, $50 million, you're talking about 7 years of funding.
Representative Helgerson.
I appreciate the offer you made, and when we get out of here, I would love to take a tour and visit with you a little bit more about it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions for Andy? And like I said in my comments, my initiative is to actually coordinate something probably after the primary election, where the entire Appropriations Committee can have a tour and see the facilities. Representative Turk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a question. I just have one comment. I mean, obviously, this is a subject matter that falls under my purview, and I've invested heavily into it. Over the interim, I had the opportunity to meet with legislators from multiple states, for which I got to meet the Oklahoma Senate Commerce Chair. Sweet lady, very nice lady. We'd normally be friends if it wasn't for her position. She made it very clear, and I don't mean to say this and to detract from any of the other variables that lead us to the conclusion that this is a good investment, but just wanted to put this out into the ether. She made it very clear that Oklahoma, it's the intent of Oklahoma to steal the title of aviation capital from us. So I took that very personal, and I just want to remind everybody that all of our investment here, all of our work over the years must be maintained and focused on. We must still do our job and all the due diligence involved with good investments, but they're coming after us, and this is Kansas's forte, and I would like to keep it that way. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Could I comment to that?
Yes, Andy.
Representative Turk, totally agree. So we were meeting, we had a Board of Regents meeting, and we talked about where the state of Kansas was focusing. And they made a point to say aviation is not in the top of things that we're looking at for Kansas. Meanwhile, if you look at Oklahoma's aviation alliance, the fastest growing sector in Oklahoma is aviation. And so to me, that's a very good point. They are actively going after that. And they own this sector that we're talking about investing in.
And Oklahoma's been going after that for years.
Yep.
It's not just something that's recent.
Yep.
They've been actually pursuing this for years. Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Turk, for those comments. In fact, I had just turned to the left and I said to him, aren't we the aviation capital of the world? And he said, yes. And I said, think about it. Small Kansas, small population, and look what we have accomplished. And there's somebody always after us. And he makes that comment. I wasn't going to comment, but I want to say, right on. And just think what you can do over years if you have an exceptional reputation and hard work. So you can comment if you want, but I just wanted to echo what he said, because I find it hard to believe, as smart as we are in the Midwest, that we are doing what we do. And whenever I've gone down there to see the bombers or whatever, I've always been amazed.
The only comment I would make is it's a partnership, and the fact that you guys have invested in the infrastructure allows us to be faster and quicker and more nimble than anybody else, right? It's when a business comes to you and says, we want this, and we say, hey, it's 18 to 24 months to build. If we've already got the infrastructure and we can say we can go today, we're going to get that business. And so that's really where our growth has come from, is that partnership.
Thank you for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions or comments for Andy? All right, seeing none. Thank you for being here, and also thank you again for changing it from the MRO to the MSP. So
It's, military sustainment program. And the one thing I would ask as we go forward is I realize we turn in a report every year of what we're doing, and you guys are busy. You have so many things, and priorities change every year. So that's not always at the top of the list, and there's lots of questions. So beyond a report, I would love to have language that says we have to come back and give a report to Ways and Means, to SWAM, and to Joint Commerce, so we can talk about the progress, right? And if we're not hitting the goals and the things that you want us to be doing with the investment, then we need to have those conversations. And I think a public conversation is better than a report.
all right, well, that sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, thank you again, Andy.
Thank you.
All right, committee, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next item, and that is final action on the bill that we had a hearing on yesterday, House Bill 2788, which is establishing the Business Enterprise Program Oversight Task Force. And so I would entertain a motion to pass out House Bill 2788. Representative Williams.
And I second that motion.
All right. Is there any discussion in regards to House Bill 2788? Vice Chair Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two amendments. I think there's another amendment down the road. So my amendments are, so let's pass out the first amendment, Jesse, and it is going to be the one that relates to the audit.
While that's being passed out, can you describe your amendment?
Absolutely. So this is actually a very easy amendment. I mentioned it in my testimony yesterday. In the original bill language, it actually said that the task force would be making the recommendation for a legislative post-audit. This actually changes it. We're going to go ahead and pursue an audit. We have members on this committee that are also on the committee of LPA and the Select Committee, and there is already audit language for performance and fiscal being requested, and then that committee may select it. Again, this change it puts the responsibility on us, not the task force, and then it doesn't delay that action. But it doesn't require, with the passage of the bill, that the audit be picked up by the committee. It's more like an endorsement. So I'll stand for questions.
All right, so committee, you've had a chance to look at the amendment. Obviously, I think Vice Chair Williams is making a motion to amend.
Yes, thank you.
Is there a second? Second by Representative Hoffman. Discussion on the amendment. All right, seeing none, Vice Chair Williams, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close on my amendment.
All right, you've heard the amendment. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the amendment passes. Vice Chair Williams.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. My last amendment is, if you'll pass that out, Jesse, it's going to relate to the task force. So there are 7 members. The 7 members will remain in terms of voting members, but based on Representative Estes' comments, we did go ahead and add a couple of ex officio non-voting members. One would be the Secretary of DCF or their appointment or designee, and then the other one would actually be the American Council of the Blind. So that would kind of help us sidestep any potential issues that might be there, and that's the amendment, and that's my motion.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion to amend. Is there a second? Second by Representative Hoffman. Discussion on the amendment. All right, seeing none, Vice Chair Williams, you may close.
I close on my amendment.
All right, committee, you've heard the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Amendment passes. Any further discussion? Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have an amendment. If you pass that out. While it's being passed out, I might just explain. It's a pretty simple amendment. It just establishes the way a election will be conducted. There'll be a secret ballot, and the Department of Children's Families will have an oversight of that election process. We heard in testimony that some of the folks didn't feel like that there was a fair election process, that maybe things were decided behind the scenes and then just orchestrated out in the public when they got there. So this takes care of that, and I'll certainly stand for questions on that.
Did you make a formal motion?
I am.
Is there a second? Second by Representative Turk. Discussion on the motion, or the amendment. All right, seeing none, Representative Carpenter, you may close.
I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion to amend. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Our motion passes. Any further discussion in regards to House Bill 2788? All right, do we have a motion to pass out House Bill 2788 as amended? Vice Chair Williams.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we pass out House Bill 2788 as amended favorably for passage.
All right, committee, for the motion, is there a second? Second by Representative Getz. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Well, committee, that's all the business that we have for today. As I mentioned earlier in the meeting, we will not be having a meeting tomorrow, and we will not be having a meeting on Monday. And then I'll be working with Susan to change the agenda in regards to bonding on Tuesday. So until Tuesday at 9 a.m., we are adjourned.